This week's verse is Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose. This is probably one of the most memorized scriptures. I hear it all the time. But there's a difference between memorizing and quoting a scripture and having a true revelation of God's complete authority, His immense love for us, and His plan for good in our lives. We all face potholes in the road of life, and some of those potholes feel more like canyons. But God is still the compassionate, master strategist with a plan, and we are still His beloved children. In the Bible, Jacob worked for Laban, his father-in-law, for more than 14 years, and the Lord blessed him and blessed Laban through him. But eventually, Laban's heart began to turn to disfavor. In Genesis 31, Jacob learned that Laban's sons were talking behind his back. Jacob has used our father's wealth to make himself rich at our father's expense. At the same time, Jacob noticed that Laban had changed toward him. He wasn't treating him the same. That's when God said to Jacob, "Go back home where you were born. I'll go with you." So Jacob sent word for Rachel and Leah to meet him out in the field where his flocks were. He said, "I noticed that your father has changed toward me. He doesn't treat me the same as before. But the God of my father hasn't changed. He's still with me." There are two things I'd like to emphasize. Though your circumstances may change, God's love for you does not. As you move further down the road, you'll often look back and see how those circumstances were an important part of moving you forward and giving you positive influence in others' lives. Number two, God's love for you is independent of man's favor. We can't look at how people treat us and then base our view of God's love on these interactions. People are imperfect. We miscommunicate. We're often selfish. We lack empathy. But God is perfect in all His ways, and His love is completely perfect and immeasurable. He values us more than we can comprehend. If you remember Joseph, he faced some incredible hardships. His brothers were jealous of him, so they beat him up and sold him as a slave. His slave master's wife lusted for him, so when he wouldn't give in to her, she accused him of sexually assaulting her and had him thrown in the dungeon. It was one thing after another. But God was working in the midst of all of it for His perfect plan, to put him eventually in a position of great responsibility and authority so that he could save many people, including his brothers. When a terrible famine hit, Joseph was in the right place to make a difference. He says to his brothers, "Don't you see? You planned evil against me, but God used those same plans for my good. As you see all around you right now, life for many people." Let's not discount the love that God has for us and the power that He has to use the difficult situations in our lives for good, in us and the bigger picture. Let's declare together that we trust God.
Keep at it, and let's grow together.